This is Arno Michaelis, Executive Director of Life After Hate. On behalf of everyone in our organization and everyone in our family, we'd like to extend our deepest sadness for all the lives lost today. The shooting at the Sikh temple in Oak Creek, Wisconsin. We'd also like to extend our deepest love to all the lives left devastated by this tragedy. This atrocity that happened today hits home for me not only because I live in Milwaukee and this is in my backyard, but also because there was a time in my life when I practiced the hate and violence that was the raw material behind this shooting. At this time, I haven't heard anything about the shooter. I don't really know what the background was or what his motivation was. I can only speculate along with everyone else until more investigation is done. But I can also reflect on what was behind my own practice of hate and violence. I can remember how I was attached to an ideology that was cast to portray me and my comrades as the good guys, even though we were the ones going out and attacking people because of the color of their skin or because of their sexuality. We were so twisted because we limited ourselves strictly to information sources that agreed with this ideology. On a daily basis, there'd be all sorts of information coming that would indicate the falsehood of what we were trying to believe. But we blocked it out. It took a conscious effort to deny that information. And that was 20 years ago, before the advent of the internet and smartphones, where information is much easier to come by, but I'd say it's also easier to limit your information sources. I don't know what the motivation of the shooter was, but I can remember my own sense of urgency that I felt as I engaged in this paranoid lie that my race was under attack and that I had to do something about it. Otherwise, my people would be wiped out. I think it's a pretty safe bet to say that the shooter was attached to a very similar narrative that led him to walk into a place of worship and murder people he's never met before. I like to believe that I was never so far gone that I could have murdered people in cold blood, but I attacked people and I beat them to bloody messes. It was almost a more personal form of violence than walking up to someone and shooting them was. Reflecting on my past and what was going through my head when I was that twisted, I'm driven to look for some kind of answer to this senseless violence that happened today. And I imagine all human beings who hear of this massacre or massacres elsewhere for whatever reason are going to be looking for answers themselves. Thinking about it today, the one-word answer I've come up with is responsibility. When I was attached to a paranoid ideology, it was an utter display of irresponsibility. Nothing was my fault. Everything was someone else's fault. In my case, it was Jewish people's fault, black people's fault, Latino people's fault, lesbian and gay people's fault. Everyone's fault but mine. I took no responsibility for my situation personally or for the world around me and how my actions affected it. So, in answer to this violence today, I hope that everyone touched by it, and I believe that every human being who hears of this tragedy is touched by it, can challenge themselves to be mindful of their own responsibility, or as the case may be, irresponsibility. Are we placing blame for the problems of the world on someone else, on another group of people, on a certain religion, on a certain political stance? Whether blame is cast upon Democrats for all the world's ills, or Republicans, or Christians, or Muslims, or capitalists, or socialists, if you're casting blame, you are also casting away your own power to positively affect the world around you, and thus create an environment that is less conducive to the kind of senseless horror that happened in Oak Creek, Wisconsin today. I want to do something about this. I want to take action that makes it less likely that this kind of thing will happen again. From my experience, I understand that the most effective action I can take is to practice kindness and compassion unconditionally and broadcast it to everyone whose paths I cross as I go about my day, especially those who seem not to deserve it. What changed the course of my life and brought me to where I am today from where I was 20 years ago as a violent racist was people who I claimed to hate giving me a gift of kindness and compassion, even when I had no reason to deserve it. Those acts of kindness eventually eroded this construct of an ideology that I was so attached to that I was ready to hurt people because of it. Those acts of kindness changed the course of my life and brought me to a place where I can help other people change the courses of their lives. The power of a simple act of kindness cannot be underestimated. It's not a stretch. Even without knowing anything about this shooter's motivation or what brought him to commit this atrocity that he committed today, it's not beyond the realm of possibility to say that an act of kindness could have diverted him from where he ended up today. Don't underestimate your power to positively affect the world around you. Don't underestimate your power to negatively affect the world around you either. When we take personal responsibility for our actions and understand that when we input into the system that is the society around us, the output is corresponding. Hate begets hate, violence begets violence, as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. famously said. And fortunately for all human beings, the same is true for peace and love. Please honor the lives that were lost today by practicing peace and love yourself. Thank you.